say much about his experience on the podcast with us, or?
We kind of kept it hush hush. I wanted my own individual experience, but he said that I'd enjoy you guys. You guys are a lot of fun.
So he lied basically.
Yeah, he lied.
Is that what it is? Is that what it is? All right.
He must have received our big novelty check. Right.
Awesome.
Yeah,
$8.70.
We in Australian dollars, which is about $4 American.
I need to move to Australia then.
Yeah. Yeah. We do like to have a bit of a laugh along the way because what we're talking about is pretty serious stuff. With mental health and people that are struggling and things that we've been through in our life, those dark moments. But I think it's always good to have that humour along with it, so we can soften it a little bit. So the show has started. So ladies and gentlemen, that voice that you can hear that's not mine or Nico's is Ralph from We Are All One Story. A few weeks back we had his brother Jose on describing his story, and now I'm really, really excited to have you on today, Ralph, because I've read your bio and just a little bit, and like you said before we jumped on preparing for the podcast, didn't want to know too much and just go in with an open mind, and we're doing the same here, but we know that you've obviously been through a bit in your time. So before we jump right into your story, for those who didn't listen to the episode with Jose, just give us a really brief rundown of what We Are All One Story is and what you guys are doing at the minute.
Right now, we're going around the country and we're sharing people's stories. My brother came up with the concept. I was going through a little depressive state myself, and I had lost the value in my own story because I had been telling my story around the country as well. So I had to let other people put the value in my own story, and I kind of lost the value in my own. And so when he told me about the concept of We Are All One Story, I thought it was brilliant because I was interested in other people's stories. And so, the more that we get to share and the larger the platform gets and the more people that get involved, it's an amazing feeling. It's like you get like a high from it. It's just crazy. Like right now, like I'm getting goosebumps.
Yeah, I could feel it from the other side of the
planet. Yeah. And so
there's some strong goosebumps.
Yeah. And so, when he asked me what I wanted to do, and I said, I was going to do whatever I could. One of the biggest things that I felt that I could do for the project was tell my story with complete honesty and vulnerability. And that way it would inspire other people to do the same as well. And so, and by doing so, like it relieved so much from me, you know what I mean? Like it felt so good for me. And immediately once I was done with my interview, I knew that we were heading in the right direction.
Right. So you were already going around kind of sharing your story before Jose came with you with the idea?
Yeah, correct. Give you a little brief background about me. Grew up in LA, fell in love with sports, went to college, figured out that it wasn't for me, but I always had that desire of team. And so I joined the Marines. I spent 14 years in the Marines, and I did 3 combat deployments, 1 to Iraq and 2 to Afghanistan. On my 3rd deployment, I lost my legs. Mm-hmm. And so that was a pretty difficult thing for me to go through.
Wow, cool.
But to bring it back, I didn't want to go all the way into that. With that story, with that magnification of the story and, getting the Purple Heart and then, later on winning a gold medal in sled hockey, the story was desirable. And there was a lot of people reaching out wanting me to share my story. And so it became a deal where I was like, now I got to tell you this. I got to tell you the same thing again. I got to tell you the same thing to me. And to me, it just numbed the story for myself. Mm. And so it was just something that I was just regurgitating every time. Yeah. And so when we kind of dove back down into it, I kind of found the true meaning of my story. And I had to go through all the struggles by myself. I had to go through all those hard times to figure it out because I'm a pretty stubborn dude. And so like you could give me the answers and I'm gonna be like, okay, I think I could find a better way, and then just run my head through the wall.
Yeah, classic.
But I mean that's got me pretty far so far. So, but yeah, so that's my little brief step for like We Are All One Story.
Yeah,
I've got a question for you, mate. What do you think it takes as a human to find the value in what can be at the time it can feel like a negative experience. I don't like positive and negative, but it can feel like a dark experience or a traumatic experience or something, because not everyone comes out a better person for having been through something. So in all the conversations that you've had with people and their stories, have you found anything like an intrinsic human resource or something that someone has that goes, oh, I'm going to become better for what I've been through? Because a lot of people go down and only some people go up. So what do you think it is?
It's kind of hard to put my finger on it, because even as a child, I always try to find the positive in a negative story. Just for instance, my father leaving me at a very young age and then having that chip on my shoulder, doing everything that I could to prove that I didn't need him in my life. So that carried that positive, negative kind of headspace, put me in a positive light. And that's how I dealt with that issue. And so even with the loss of friends in combat, I lost, I was the other day when we had Memorial Day, I was like, I lost 19 friends in combat. And instead of weeping and feeling sorry for myself, I said I had to do things in order to celebrate their life. So however I'm living my life, I got to live it to the max. Because if I'm not, I can't use them as an excuse. Because if it was me, I wouldn't want it that way for my guys. And I would want them living to the fullest. And that's 100% true. I believe that with my whole heart. It's like, if I'm looking down, I want you to be doing the best that you can be. Yep. And the sooner you can get that message, I think the sooner you can turn a negative into a positive.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. It makes me think there's this story of a lady I read not too long ago. Her name was, I think, Mary Johnson from the States. I bring this up when I talk to people around like forgiveness and how, living a happy life and not holding on to, things that shouldn't have happened or grudges and that kind of thing. And, her 19-year-old son was murdered. And so after that happened, that's one of the worst things that you could possibly imagine. Imagine your son or daughter getting murdered. And she was just holding on to so much hate and so much vengeance and everything in her system. And her life became about keeping the perpetrator, the man that did it, in jail. And she would go and make sure he didn't get parole and all this. And meanwhile, she was developing all sorts of issues. She developed a skin disease. Her hair was falling out. She was just filled with hate and resentment. She was getting sicker and sicker and sicker. And then one day she woke up and some voice, she said it was from back here somewhere, who knows where it came from, but it said to her, there's a different way of doing this, right? And so she started to listen to that voice, and the voice was actually telling her, you need to go and visit this guy in jail. And she's like, that's fucking crazy. Why would I do that? That's. But after a while, eventually she was like, all right, I'm not going to ignore this anymore, so I'm going to go and do it. So she visited the man that killed her son. And then she kept visiting him and over and started to understand this person and that they were in a dark place in their life and they actually wanted to rehabilitate. They formed this relationship, and actually she ended up then campaigning to get him out of jail. Right, the man that killed her son. Yeah. All of a sudden, her health started improving. Right, skin condition cleared up. Hair started growing back, and they lived next door to each other now. And she started a non-for-profit helping people who've had family members murdered find peace or find forgiveness in that, so they don't feel their lives filled with hate. And it's that whole thing. It's like you were talking about all those people that you've lost, in combat and everything. Her son looking down would not want her to live a life filled with hate and vengeance and revenge. Yeah, he would want her to find that peace and that love, and that kind of resonates with what you were saying just there. So tell us, me and Nick, we deal with all sorts of different clients and stuff down here, people coming in with issues, and, we get people coming in saying, I'm arguing with my wife once a week, what can I do? And they're having a lot of trouble with that. Ralph, you lost both of your legs. Okay, that's a big deal, and I really today wanted to talk about what that journey was for you. Like, how did you, what was that like for you originally mentally? to start to realize that, hey, I'm going to have to live the rest of my life without both of my legs? And how did you get to a state of, I suppose, acceptance of that? And how long did that take?
A little picture, I guess. After spending, 10 years in the Marine Corps and, 3 deployments, you think you're up on top of a mountain, you're invincible at that point. And then the next thing you know, you're waking up in a hospital bed and you don't have any legs. So you're probably, what the fuck? Your identity is gone. What's next? Like, oh, I'm not even gonna be able to get a girlfriend again. You know what I mean? And it's like, it got down to that small little thing. It's like, I'm not even gonna be desirable. And so, it took a long time to be able to gain that confidence. And now, when I'm walking into a room, people don't even notice that I don't have legs. They just bypass me. And sometimes, they'll bump me not even knowing. And I'm like, oh, like, dang, like, it's crazy, but it's a good feeling knowing that I went from, being so, undesirable into now, I'm mixing and mingling with the crowd. But yeah, so waking up in the hospital, realizing I didn't have legs, was probably one of the most difficult things that I've went through in my life. Took me into a deep, dark place, battled with, suicidal thoughts. I was addicted to opiates because they were giving us, opiates for our pain. And, eventually, when I knew that I didn't need medication, I was still getting it because it was numbing all the feelings. And, I've always been a person that guided myself onto the right side. And so I felt that, when I was having conversations in the hospital with practitioners and, therapists and, counselors, just up and down the hallways. And I was having these conversations and I was like, almost zombie-like, a light bulb went off in my head and said, Ralph, this isn't you. You need to fix your shit. And so, the next thing I have another surgery and I'm trying to get my physician to prescribe me a different kind of medication so that I don't fall through that path. So I kind of know when I need to go onto another end, and luckily it just worked for me so far. But with all that, gaining the confidence is what pulled me out of that deep depression, walking out, trying to be fearless about what I'm doing with my legs. One of the hardest things you can do is learn how to walk again. Mm-hmm. And, when you get broken down, think about that at a primal, stage is I'm learning how to walk again, like a baby's learning how to walk. So I'm phase 1, having to figure all those hard lessons out. And so, as a kid, you learn how to walk without fear. You're just stumbling, you're falling, you're doing all that. And I had to put myself in the same shoes in order to accomplish the same thing. And so one of my buddies, I remember, he said, I was using a crutch to walk around. He said, you just got to get rid of it. You're going to fall a couple of times. You just got to get back up. You're used to getting back up, and you just got to do it. And, I did it for about 2 weeks. I noticed so much improvement. I never went back. And so from then on, it even pulled me out even higher out of that, darker place. And so the more and more that I do, the more that I'm experiencing life, the more that I know that I'm pushing myself to the fullest, is the more, the happier I get, the more at peace I am for myself.
Yeah, I love that. It's like it's this catastrophic event, and for a lot of people, their whole life then just becomes about the fact that I don't have legs. Now it's saying you can go into somewhere and like people don't even notice. Like it's like not even a thing. Yeah, which is so beautiful.
That's that resiliency coming through, and that's that mental fortitude. And you've got to, when we face that adversity, we are forced to look internally and dig really deeply and find that inner strength to get back up and keep going. And yes, a lot of people aren't equipped with that. They fall down and they stay down. They get stuck in their woe is me pity party, and so it's amazing that you've come from that space and now you've got yourself in a position where you can give. And it's a bit funny that the similarities between Ryan and I and Jose and you. I'm ex-army as well, and I blew my knee out and got medically discharged and spiraled down. My mental health went down, and Ryan and Jose both hardened criminals. So, so yeah, it's amazing. Like we're on opposite sides of the world, but all four of us are sort of sharing what we've learnt through the lowest of our lows, and now we're at these highs and we're giving back. And it's amazing that four dudes on the opposite sides of the planet have such similarities. It's really odd.
Telling him the other day is like, I can't believe we got guys on the other side of the world that are doing the same thing that we're doing, and we're just trying to help and give back. And if it wasn't for the internet, that could have never possibly happened. You know, like how would that have been physical? How would I be on a call with you, on a video conference call with you, if that wasn't possible? And I just thought I thought it was beautiful.
We'd be sending faxes back and forward.
No, I would have to meet you guys like at a bar or something like that, and then just randomly strike up a conversation for this to happen. And it's just
we can still do that. We can still hang. Yeah,
still definitely, it's gonna happen.
I talk to people about, you know. So I was super fit when I was in the army. I was in reconnaissance, and I used to represent the army at the Defence Force Games in running. So I was really good at running, and so when I blew my knee out, all of a sudden I couldn't do my job. You know, I was on sedentary duties instead of out in an armoured vehicle. And, all of a sudden I couldn't run, and I lost a lot of mates, and I started getting treated like shit, and a lot of bastardisation and bullying because, you know, I was a malingerer or a gimp or whatever. And I was really odd, and looking back now, it's so interesting that I didn't realise with the physical trauma there came a really deep emotional trauma that is constantly overlooked. No one takes into account the emotional trauma that accompanies such a physical trauma. And your physical trauma is obviously way different and way worse than mine. But yeah, were you aware of that mental trauma that occurred at the time, or because you're so in it, you just don't have that awareness?
Yeah, you know, I've always felt like I was a super aware person. But, you know, to tell you the truth, you know, just culturally, you know, being raised in LA, you know, you're taught to be tough. You know, you get your ass whooped. Your mom tells you better go whip his ass, or I'm going to go whip your ass. So, you know, you just have that kind of mentality. And so that even goes along with emotions. So you learn how to suppress your emotions. And so, you know, when I was go through my traumatic events, like I would, you know, just kind of bully my way through, but it would never put me in a better space. And, you know, I realized that once I won my gold medal, you know, because I was always trying to chase the next thing and thinking that the next thing was going to bring me the happiness. And then when I got my gold medal, I found myself in a dark place again. Right. So that wasn't the answer.
Yeah.
You know, so I figured that out the hard way. You know what I mean?
That's what us stubborn guys do, man.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So, you know, I had that carrot out there my whole life, and I finally got that carrot. And once I got it, it was like, oh shit, there's another carrot. Like it wasn't nothing for me. Like don't get me wrong, like it's a beautiful feeling to be a Paralympic gold medalist and all that. There was so much hard work and sacrifice, but that wasn't the answer to the problems that I was having in life.
Your happiness doesn't exist outside of you, does it? It's going to come from within you.
And that's what happened. I had to figure that out the hard way. So once I forgave myself, forgave my father, you know, and pretty much just put myself out there and said, hey, this is what I'm doing because it's what I love to do, whether regardless of, you know, the outcome. That's, you know, peace to me in general.
So you can be doing the same thing, but it's coming from a different energy. And just to give people context, when you say gold medal, like, what the fuck, did he win a gold medal? It's like after your accident, you found, was it para ice hockey? Yeah. That's right. And so the 2018 games, you won the gold there.
Yes, the U.S. beat the Canadians 2-1, and, you know, we beat them in overtime. It was a great feeling, you know. Even with that, you know, I thought that I was going to be sad once we played the national anthem, you know, with our flag being dropped, because, you know, that would take me back to an emotional standpoint. But during that process, I was hugging up on 14 other dudes, and we're singing, you know, the national anthem, and there's tears coming out, but there's so much joy So even to be able to pull that negative and then throw in a positive and, just be like, I have, 17 new brothers. That was a beautiful feeling for that as well.
Yeah. And it's like you can start to use a different juice, because you said something there. There's two things that you said. One, it's like your father leaving when you were younger, which gives you the chip on your shoulder. And then that can provide us with a lot of motivation to do stuff, right? But then it's like, if that was an energy source, it might be coal. It might be like, it'll get the job done, but it's not great for us or the environment,
Exactly. And, you have to put yourself into a certain headspace in order to operate like that. And, sometimes that headspace isn't the greatest. You're going through your deepest, darkest depression, so you stay focused on one thing, and that's the only thing that's keeping you alive, at that point. And so you're gonna succeed at whatever that is, because if you don't give up, you're gonna make it. That's what I believe.
And they found that in all these studies and research that perseverance is the key to success. It's not skill or ability or how much education you've had. It's just perseverance, and it's just that keep going no matter what.
That's like the learning to walk again. It's like if the baby's like learning to walk. Like I've got a baby now, and if he was learning to walk, and first time he fell over, he went, this isn't for me. I'm just going to crawl for the rest of my life.
Exactly. That's perseverance right there. I
talk to clients about it all the time, and when they can start to hear that they've got this too hard basket. I'm like, get rid of your fucking too hard basket. It's going to be a bag full of limiting beliefs, and that's going to stop you getting there. But it's like when we're at school and we turn up to this classroom and there's all these weird symbols across the top of the blackboard, and you're like, what are these symbols? And you're like, that's A and that's B and that's C. You don't sit there and go, nah, it's too hard, I'm not going to figure it out. You sit there for 6 years, learn how to put them all together and then do different things with them. So it's that perseverance and just sticking with it gets you very far, doesn't it?
Very far. And still being able to have that mindset, but in a positive light. I feel just at a better place. It just feels a lot better what I'm doing now. Like I've, instead of overworking and grinding too hard, like I grind when it's appropriate and I rest when it's appropriate, and that's helped my mental headspace as well. Because before, in that deep, dark place, like I said, I'd stay focused. I'd be in the gym, I'd be at the rink, I'm chasing this gold medal, and then thinking, this is going to be, once I get it, it's going to be the answer. But no, now I'm chasing another gold medal, but I'm doing it kind of like at my own pace. Like I'm training when I need to trace, but I'm taking care of my headspace. And then in turn, it's like everything is working together in sync, and it's an incredible feeling. Like it's just amazing.
It's that different energy source, isn't it? You've switched to like a solar, like something real good for the environment, and which means like it'll be amazing if you win gold again, but you don't have to be as attached to that. But even more important than that is, it's like you'll enjoy the journey more, like up until that point, instead of that grinding, hustling, punishing myself, trying to get to this goal that's going to make me happy. It's just enjoying the journey with a better mental health.
I feel like losing that ego and trying to, do things it's what got me through, but it was just a very ugly thing for me. And then once I lost the ego, it was like, oh, this is easy. Like, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, yeah, sure, there are some dark days still, but I'm saying for the most part, just knowing that, I'm not in control is just a beautiful feeling.
I wish there was an operation we could have that just gets rid of the ego. I'm going for an ego-otomy or something. Just to
ego-otomy.
just get rid of that damn ego.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It was interesting what you were saying right at the start. It made me think of Nelson Mandela walking out of jail and hugging the prison guards there. It was that finding the value in the experience, but not becoming bitter, not letting it tarnish us or taint us, or we don't want, like that woman who carried that anger for so long. Like mentally Nelson Mandela was just free that whole time because he walked out and it's just like, oh, thank you, see you later, and kept going. And like, imagine if we all could possess that.
It's amazing. It's just blame. It's just, but blame keeps us stuck. If we're blaming, we can't move forward. We're just stuck in this one position. By letting go of blame, it gives us a chance to move forward. Funny thing about Nelson Mandela, there's just a funny side note that I read, is that not long after he got out of prison, he ended up divorcing his wife, and it's like he could handle 25 years in prison, but not his wife for 6 months.
Hey, marriage is rough. It can be. I should say it can be.
Can be. What I wanted to touch on was, so you said you were sharing your story after everything happened, but it sounded to me like you were, I think the word used was regurgitating. So it's just like robotic. Like I'm sharing my story because it's a very powerful story, like things that you've been through. So, but it just becomes, I suppose, it lacks maybe the emotion or the juice or the complete vulnerability and the complete rawness. And then after Jose coming along and, you know, talking to you about this idea, what was that process for you of now sharing your story in a different way?
You know, when I say regurgitate my story, it wasn't that I lacked emotion because I had to go through it, you know, over and over and over and over and over again. Okay. So every time I tell my story, like, there's no way you can't go through those emotions again. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter how many times I say it. Like when you lose a friend in your hands, you know, you lose a brother in your arms. You know, that's a pretty emotional thing, you know what I mean? So you can't escape that. So, but, you know, in turn, you know, just saying it over and over and over, you know, those emotions became easier to be, I guess, dealt with. And so that's how that felt like they've numbed out, because that's an extreme thing to go through. And so, you know, what had happened when I shared my story with Jose is he asked different questions. And so the questions I was getting asked now was like, you know, how did my father's absence affect me? You know, so I'm sitting there, you know, and I've already, 2015, like I said, I'm making the men's sled hockey team, and I'm in Portland at a training camp. I run into my dad. My dad leaves when I'm 5, and I run into him. You know, I'm in the area. He says, let's have dinner, and I'm all for it. So we meet up, and he comes, and the whole family's there. So I have a sister, 2 brothers. They have significant others. He has his wife, and he has him. And at that moment, I was like, there's no hate in my heart. Like, I can't have it. I have other family right here that I get the opportunity to experience life with. And so immediately it was just like, you know, that blame, like you said earlier, you know, I blamed him for a lot of things. It just went away. Wow. And it was a great feeling, you know, and, you know, each of my siblings has a daughter. So I have 3 nieces, and every time I go home to them, it's just like, this is what my life is about right now. I have that opportunity. I've been given that opportunity. Not only am I doing what I get to love to do,
in a different sense.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And and that's what it is. You know, I've been able to find that fine balance, and I guess that puts me in a pretty good headspace at the moment.
What's so having your legs blown off and waking up in hospital and losing all your mates and you know, doing 3 tours and getting a Purple Heart. Like, I didn't go through any of that. I blew my head just before we were getting deployed to East Timor, and so I got out before all of the Middle East kicked off. But even I was pretty banged up, you know, just by the abuse that I experienced, you know, after I did my knee. What was the journey like for you mentally coming from it? Was there severe depression, anxiety, and PTSD, and what sort of what did you have to work through, and how did you work through it?
Immediately, like I said, immediately combat, I guess I would imagine, you know, when anytime someone passes away from me, I often think about the people around them, and that's what makes me sad, is the emotions that they're going through, because I understand the concept of life and death, and, you know, we're all here for a reason, and, you know, when you die, you got to go, you know what I mean? And so the feeling and the grief that the family feels is what makes me super sad. And so, when that happened the first time, I know that it's part of the job. I signed up for the military. At any given chance, I could lose my life. And so, understanding that in my own self, like, I think it helped me understand it when I had to deal with it with my brothers, and so I think that kind of, that feeling is mutual, especially when you're around a solid group of guys like I was. I was around, 120 guys in my small little EOD unit, and we knew each other by first name basis. We knew each other's families. We had barbecues with people's kids. We knew people's kids' names and stuff like that. And so we were around a good, solid group of people. And we always had that mentality that we were going to pick up our ruck and get back to work if something catastrophic was going to happen. And I think that being bred into my mental state at a young career helped me get through all those tough, difficult situations. And, honestly, I guess it's the amount, practicing adversity, practicing that resilience. You go through it once, it can affect you a certain way. You go through it twice, it might affect you a little bit differently. You go through it 18 times and you realize that the sun comes up and the sun sets. You got to go on with your life and you got to live it to the fullest. And, I've seen a lot of friends, use that as an excuse and go down that PTSD route, usually fit guys, out of shape, go turning to drugs, just secluding themselves. And I was that guy as well. You know what I mean? And as soon as I could feel like I just, relieved that pressure also for doing it for them, that also catapulted my inner peace as well. Because that could be a heavy burden too. I remember I was having a conversation with my wife and I told her, I was like, I know I can't fail at this dream because I have, the weight of 18 other guys on my shoulders. You know what I mean? And so as soon as I was able to just say, what, I'm also dumping that weight as well. Like it was easier to deal with. I never very rarely have like nightmares and stuff like that. So for me, dealing with all the negative aspects of war and, being in the military is like, I've always, like I said, I can go back to the beginning of, growing up. I've always tried to find the positive in whatever was negative, no matter how negative it got.
But it's a big transition. It's a big transition to go from being fully functioning with 2 arms and 2 legs human to the next day not having 2 of those 4 limbs. Like that's a massive shift, and that's going to fuck with your head a bit.
Even in the position that I'm at now, like I feel like I'm super, confident. I'm hooking and jabbing. I'm moving around. I'm doing things. I'm living life to the fullest. But there are some times where I'm like, fuck, I wish I could do that. Like that's so easy. This person that doesn't is doing the bare minimum is able to accomplish this task, and yet I can't. And so, yeah, that mentally gives me a hurdle all the time. It's like, damn, like even this person is do it and I can't do it even if I tried my hardest. So just think about jumping. I couldn't jump if I wanted to. Like if I wanted to get a foot-inch vertical, like I couldn't do it in my legs. I would have to get special legs. And so that would be something that's frustrating, especially for somebody who's athletic. So you can only multiply that by all the other things.
You could also get sort of kangaroo legs as well, though. You could
yeah. Well, the positive side, it's like I said, I always look at it as the positive side. I was 5'10" when I got blown up. When I got my new legs, I said, hey, make me 6 foot.
Yes.
I was like, 6 foot tall, dark, and handsome sounds a lot better than 5'10".
Hello, ladies.
You could throw that out there.
It's always the meaning we give something, right?
Yeah, you got it, right? That's taking ownership of it. You know what I mean? And it's, instead of being a victim, and you just had to take. I just had to take the ownership of it. And
but you're right. It does. You do still go. Your mind still does wander down those paths of. It's not fair, and these cognitive distortions. And I talked to Ryan and my clients about doing these mental reps, these bicep curls for the brain. And with my knee, it's still fucked, and I can't climb stairs or squat or do heaps of stuff. So when I'm aware that my mind's wandering, that's when I have to do one of those mental reps and pull my mind back and shove it down the positive path instead of that letting it just creep off down that destructive path.
And with the practice, I think you figure that out the sooner the better. At least I have.
Yeah.
I notice when I'm like, oh shit, here it goes. Let's do that mental rep, pull out. Where before I couldn't even identify what I was going through.
Yeah.
I've had to go through it so many times, and I kind of figured it out. Oh shit, this is depression. Oh shit, I'm feeling anxiety. Oh, like these are the feelings, these are the emotions that I'm feeling, because I was never taught how to express that. I was never taught, I had to suppress all that growing up.
I had a client come in yesterday. He got diagnosed with prostate cancer 6 weeks ago, and he's going in for surgery tomorrow. And his old man died of prostate cancer, so there was all these underlying things happening. And his partner basically threw him through my office door and said, just go and see Nick, would you? And he's finally sitting in here, and it turns out we're from the same town. We both got kicked out of the same high school. There was all these hilarious similarities, and he's like, I can't believe it took me so long to come in here. Like, this is great being in here. This is I'm really picking up your vibe. But I said, so how can I help you? He's like, well, I know, I have to be strong. I have to be strong for everyone. I'm like, what's your definition of strong? And he's like, well, I've just got to hold it all together. And I said, let's talk about your idea of strong, because to me, strength is actually letting it go, letting it fall apart, letting it break down. And he's like, oh, right. And I said, so I can't do anything for you between now and your surgery next week, except advise you to respect and validate what your heart wants. And if you want to cry, let yourself cry. But that stubbornness really sort of, and men have this weird concept of strength is showing no emotion, where for me I think it takes more strength to let go.
It does. It does.
We feel like we want to be in control, and by controlling we're suppressing, because we're controlling everything. And it's the exact opposite. Once you let that go, now you have total control.
Yeah.
I said to him, I told him to surrender, and he looked at me cross-eyed almost. He's like, surrender? What? How do you surrender? And I said, you just let go, dude. Because I said, you're holding on, as you were just talking about, mate. You're holding on, but it's out of fear. So it's an anxiety that's causing that tension and that tight state. And I said, man, you're going into hospital for a really serious operation. You don't want to go in all pent up. He went for an MRI scan, and he was holding the emergency button, as they do, and he didn't realise how tight he was holding it, and he strained some muscles in his elbow from being so tense. Like, just from...
Yeah, oh wow.
I'm like, after your surgery, man, come back, because we're going to teach you how to fucking relax.
Yeah, just relax, chill.
Yeah. Breathe, let it go, surrender.
Yeah, you explained the paradox of control really well there, Ralph. It's like the more we try and control things, the more out of control the world seems. The more we let go of control, the more we realise, everything's fine. There's no need for control. It's just counterintuitive to how we're brought up. And same with me with the tears. Like, I didn't, before I went and saw Melissa for my drug addiction, I hadn't cried for over 10 years, maybe 15. And I wore that as like a badge of honour, like a pride thing. Like, I haven't cried for over 10 years. It's like, man, that's so unhealthy. It's ridiculous,
It's so bad.
When I smoked cigarettes, it was people would say, why don't you give up smoking? I'm like, no, if I start something, I finish it.
Yeah.
I'm not a quitter.
Mama didn't raise no quitter.
Yeah. How irrational is that? How fucking stupid is that? It is crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I mean, like for me, for instance, it was just ingrained at a young age. Like I just said, Mama didn't raise no quitter. That was a real thing.
But imagine if you didn't surrender to the fact that you had no legs. Like that woman, imagine if she didn't surrender to the fact that this dude killed her son. And imagine all the people listening that are holding on to something or multiple things from their past. People call it baggage or whatever. But imagine the state you would be in now if you hadn't have surrendered to what the universe had in store for you, or God, or whatever we believe in.
You know, this baggage. Imagine you're going on a journey and you're walking through this journey of life and you have all this baggage on your back. You know, that journey is going to be a lot more difficult. As soon as you start emptying that pack, your journey is going to get a lot easier. And as soon as that pack's empty and all the things that you're holding on to, you're moving lock and step like it's nothing now.
Yeah,
But
more
to get rid of that
energy.
baggage, we need some tools. We need to learn how to let that baggage go. So a lot of people don't learn acceptance. A lot of people don't learn forgiveness. A lot of people don't learn compassion. And so I think what I'm doing, what Hass is doing, is really trying to empower people with these really important tools and resources so they're suddenly in a position where they can let go. Like, there's no point telling someone, just let go, when you've got to know how to do it.
Mm.
You know, my approach to it was through love. And I've always been that kind of person that I wanted to approach everything with love and, you know, just forgiving my past and then approaching, you know, forward with love, knowing that it's what I'm loving, what I'm doing. I love, you know, my off time, everything that's been in that direction has just worked out for me. So I know that being a man of hate and violence and all that isn't the answer for me. You know what I mean? Because I've lived that life as well.
I don't
Didn't
think
work,
it's the
yeah?
answer for anybody. I don't think it's the answer for anyone.
Yeah. But see, like I said, I'm stubborn. I had to go through it myself. So,
Yeah.
you know, I did it. And I know for a fact that it's not my answer.
Yeah.
You know, the partying, all the, you know, all the other crazy stuff that I did, you know, other than losing my legs and as such, I just knew. I know where I'm at right now is the answer for me.
Question I have, you mentioned back, opiate pills are a massive problem, not just in your country, but they're becoming a massive problem here in Australia as well. I would like to know maybe your advice for people that are stuck on them. Because what you said, I've spoken about this on the podcast before, and it's exactly the problem and why people become addicted to opiate pills, because they get prescribed them for a physical issue that's going on. Because any medication or drug that we take, it's not selective. It's not like, here's a pill that'll just help with the pain in your legs. It goes to every cell in your body. And then all of a sudden we realize that, hey, it dulls my emotional stuff that I have going on as well. And then we get very, very hard to come off. So is there any like advice you have, or was there a specific moment for you that you said enough's enough? Because this is a big problem, I believe.
It was, you know, looking myself in the mirror, you know, holding myself accountable and knowing the kind of man that I wanted to be. And that direction wasn't the way I wanted to go. You know, that was a hard thing to do, is just look at myself and be like, Ralph, you're walking around life like a zombie. You've never done that. Why the fuck are you doing this? And, you know, it's that constant battle. Like, I must have had that conversation with myself hundreds of times before I was strong enough to finally say, fuck it. Let's implement some solutions. And, you know, one of them was having a surgery and telling them to put me on the one that kind of does what an opiate does. I can't remember what it's called.
But it's different.
But it's different. And so it wasn't a narcotic. And so I was on that for a couple weeks, and boom, I was done. I was out of that. Yeah, I was, and I never experienced it again.
So it took this uncomfortable truth, even though you'd repeated this uncomfortable truth that you knew to be true hundreds of times. It was that time that you finally surrendered and actually listened to it and said, hey, what the fuck am I doing here? I don't want to be this person.
But it was also
experiencing that dark part.
It was also that self-accountability, though, too, because if someone else had have said to you, Ralph, get off the opiates, if you weren't prepared to do it, then you would have gone, fuck off. So it had to come from within you. And
exactly.
We talk about 5 steps to change, and the first one is having that awareness, but the second step is having that acceptance. And so you can't change or transform or shift or do anything until you've got that awareness, which unfortunately, once again, a lot of people don't have. So it's amazing. It says a lot about you, mate, that you've got this innate awareness, but also this innate ability after maybe months or years of stubbornness, you finally reach this place of acceptance where, right, this isn't working. I've got to shift. I've got to change.
It's crazy because I don't think I have the answers to anything, but I could tell you a lot of things that don't work. That's for sure. You know what I mean?
That's even more important. That's more
Yeah,
important.
that's the most.
I say to clients all the time, I'm like, I'm not special, I'm not amazing, you know. All I've done is figured shit out the hard way. I know what to do, but more importantly, I know what not to do.
Exactly.
That's awesome. I love the work that you're doing, mate. We're really keen to try and catch up in person one day with you and your brother Jose.
No, the Australians got a sled hockey team, so
there you go.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we might have to get out there and play against them one of these times.
I play. Ryan and I both play golf, but I play for the injured military vets golf team, the Australian soldier on golf team, and we play the British guys. They've got a team called Battle Back, and the US have a team as well. So yeah, we're trying to get over to the States once this COVID stuff's all lifted, and there's a lot of double amputee guys in there, and so if I was playing against this dude with one arm and one leg, and he whooped my ass, man. He was like, his handicap was 20, but he's chipping in from off the green and putting from the miles. I'm like, this is fuck you. Very angry.
Crazy what we can do, right? It just I get fascinated by it all the time.
Yeah,
is that just seeing other guys do it. Yeah, it's so crazy.
Do you play jokes with it? Like do you ever get drunk and wake up in the morning and you can't find your legs and you go, oh, I've lost my legs again. I've got to stop doing this. Or do you take the piss out of yourself? Because these British guys are very good at doing that.
I'll leave my legs in the bedroom and then I'll walk into the couch and fall asleep. So whoever's in the bedroom wakes up, like, where the fuck did he go? Like, his legs are right there. Like, where is he? You know, so I have to have fun with it. You know what I mean? I'll make the first joke, you know, I don't have a leg to stand on, stuff like that, you know, just to throw it out to make people feel comfortable. Because at the end of the day, I don't want them to feel uncomfortable, like they're walking around eggshells when they're around me. Yeah. And so, I mean, I found that comedy usually helps with that, you know, just throwing that in, and then all of a sudden it kind of like puts that guard down there.
Yeah. It's a great icebreaker. And is there anything else?
They're walking on eggshells because you're not walking on eggshells.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there any tips you have for people, Ralph, things that you maybe do to keep on top of your mental health at the minute? That could be, you know, meditation, gratitude, physical exercise. Well, what kind of tools or things are you doing to keep on top of your mental health right now?
That I've had to just learn what works for me is I've been going rooftop camping. So I have this like tent that sits on top of my truck. And so I just been driving. I've been going on these long road trips, but they have allowed me to like decompress my thoughts or either, you know, revisit some thoughts. But in doing that, like I get to visit like pretty cool places like Redwood National Forest, Yosemite National Forest. And I put myself around like nature, like wildness, like vast things, ocean. And then it makes me feel so small that it humbles me. And then I know that, you know, like, shit, Ralph, just keep doing what you're doing. Like, this is amazing. This earth is just so great and vast. And yet you're here doing your thing. So no matter if you're doing it here or doing it here, just keep doing it and love what you're doing. And I think by me going into nature, like it helps me realize that every time. It just humbles me every time.
Love that.
Ryan and I do the same, don't we, Hass?
Yeah, a bit of solitude in nature. I think I found for everyone, but without generalising, for men, it just seems to be a real help just to go and reconnect and let go of it. Men are funny. We get pulled in two different directions because number one, we have a desperate need for freedom. But then also we have all these responsibilities, and we love responsibilities as well. You know, so like for me, it's like I'm a dad, I'm a business owner, I'm a husband, I'm a son, I'm a brother, and there's all these responsibilities that we do love, but there's part of us that yearns for freedom as well. And I think if we can create that time to just get away from our responsibilities and have that complete freedom, we can sort of get in touch with who we are outside of those responsibilities. Yeah, and sometimes that's uncomfortable, but also it's very humbling and a beautiful experience.
beautiful thing about going camping is that I had to experience a lot of adversity of learning what was going to work and what wasn't going to work for me.
Yep.
And then figuring that all out. And then once accomplishing the way that I do things now is just being able to reflect back and look at that is just, that's even more empowering.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, damn, Ralph, it used to take you, I have a time lapse. It used to take you 6 minutes to get in and out of your vehicle. And now it takes you 15 seconds. It's like, those are the things that I can appreciate doing things like that as well.
Gratitude. I love that. And before we finish up, mate, what's next for you? What's next on your agenda? Not just with We Are All One Story, but just with yourself personally. Is there any things that you're working towards, goals, that kind of thing?
Right now is to win a gold medal for 2022 for the United States. That's my main priority right now. It's my life. I stay fit. They opened up the rinks here in Denver, Colorado. So I've been able to skate again. And just the community that I'm building within that I'm in within sled hockey is just getting so much tighter, and we're able to do so much more things. Like I said, I'm in the right place because I know that I'm given a platform and I'm the ability to overcome a lot of obstacles. But in turn, I'm able to teach that to a lot of kids that are going through the same or similar disabilities. And
right.
So, being able to do what I love, play hockey, and just be me is a beautiful feeling when, I can share that knowledge with kids and I don't have to change anything about myself. You know what I mean? So that's a beautiful feeling for me. And so that's what, that's what's next for me. And, so I want to continue to keep doing that and, inspire kids to do what it is that they want to do.
It's so interesting, isn't it? Like we're speaking to a gold medalist, Olympian, and a Purple Heart recipient, and it sounds like his biggest achievement is finding inner peace within himself.
Well, that's definitely a big accomplishment. You don't have that monkey on your back anymore.
Yeah.
You're a inspiration, mate, and not just to your community, but to anyone who hears your story. It is a very, very powerful story, and we love that you're in a position where you can share and give and help people to then sort of give permission to them to share their own stories as well. So thank you for all that you've done and all that you are, and you're a beautiful man.
I appreciate you, Nick, Brian. It was a pleasure.
Absolute pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much. And thanks to everyone for tuning in. We will see you all next week. Peace out.
Peace.